You're 12, in the winter rot of 1342 England, crouched in a mud-brick shack that smells of sweat and mildew. Your baby brother lies on a straw mat, skin slick with fever, chest rattling like a bird trapped in a ribcage too small for breathing. Your mother sobs into her apron, rocking back and forth as if rhythm could undo fate. You sit in the corner, clutching a crumbling Latin prayer book, a gift from the village priest who secretly taught you letters when your parents thought you were tending sheep. That's when the village priest appears in the doorway, eyes gleaming like a vulture scenting rot. He sees the book, sees you. You shouldn't know how to read, but Father Benedict saw something in your hungry eyes and broke God's own rules. You, clever boy, he whispers, voice sweet as spoiled wine. The monastery needs healers, save souls, serve God. Your parents' faces glow. Their son, a doctor, a saint in the making? They're peasants drowning in mud, so they see a son who will rise above the grave dirt. What they don't see is the trap, signed in holy water, chaining you to a life of sacred slaughter. Medieval medicine isn't healing. It's sanctified butchery with a college degree. And you have just signed a deal inked in devil's blood. The monastery's infirmary hits you like a sledgehammer to the face. This isn't a school for surgeons. It's where broken bodies come to die with holy water on their lips. But Marcus, a barber surgeon hired by the abbey, still remembers the old ways of cutting flesh. Your first lesson's no book. It's holding a peasant's arm while Marcus, face cold like a corpse, saws through bone with a rusted blade. A cup of soured wine and wilted poppy leaves. Their pathetic attempts at mercy do nothing against the raw agony splitting the air like thunder. The man's screams pierce through their useless remedies. He dies choking on blood, and Marcus shrugs, God's will. You're ankle deep in his life, hands shaking like dead leaves, while monks chant over a corpse that's more warning than patient. Welcome to medical school, kid. Your future's a grave, and you're digging it with a dull knife. You're taught the sacred knowledge that's four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. These fluids are like rivers of life that must flow in harmony. Mess them up, and disease festers like sin in a sinner's heart. Sounds logical, right? It's total medieval garbage, but you swallow every lie like gospel truth. Your days are a grim buffet, examining strangers' fluids to divine their doom. Bitter stench hints at fever, and that chunky green phlegm? Start digging graves. It's less like a meal and more like decoding rot where every scent tells a story. You slice veins, letting corrupt blood spill into bowls as patients fade to ghost white. At 16, you witness the rarest horror. Marcus drilling through a crushed skull. Iron grinding through human bone to free evil vapors. The sound haunts your dreams, but you don't blink. You can't afford to. Survival means shutting off the part of your soul that still remembers mercy. It's 1348. You just turned 18, and the Black Death crashes in like hell's own tide. Ships dock with rats screeching and corpses rotting. The air thick with death's sour breath. Townsfolk collapse in open streets. Buboes bulging from necks and armpits like cursed plums. Skin blackening as death crawls through their veins. You're a barber surgeon now. Your workshop, a slaughterhouse of bloody rags and leech jars. Patients wailing on straw mats. Now you need protection, but there are no guides, no manuals, no standard uniform for what's coming. You tie a vinegar-soaked cloth across your mouth, clutch a pomander of herbs, and pull a long, oiled cloak tight. Anything to tame the miasma. Not tradition, not science, just fear stitched into shape. Your leather coat, slick with animal fat, seals you like a walking tomb. Boots crunching through plague pits. Thick gloves, heavy boots, a wide-brimmed hat. You look like a leather-clad crypt keeper with a stick into prayer. Your staff keeps the desperate at bay, because crowds of dying people would rip you apart for a scrap of hope. Your first plague patient, a merchant's wife, has buboes like black apples. You lance them with your blade, pus spraying like a vile fountain across stone walls while she shrieks through clenched teeth. The stench of rot pierces your aromatic mask. The smell is strong. It should. When rotting meat is mixed with fear sweat and approaching death. She dies screaming. 3 days later, so does the next. And the next. Your sacred humors are useless against this beast. But you keep cutting, burning, purging because stopping means admitting you're a fraud while the world burns. Your rival, Thomas, a weasel-faced apprentice who's a physician's lapdog, slinks in, tossing coins and stealing your patients. You're a butcher, he sneers. And just when he spits those words, a noble's son dies under your knife, the plague stealing his breath. The noble roars. You poisoned him. Guards drag you to a dungeon, air damp as a grave, ropes gnawing your wrists. Thomas whispers to the noble, his eyes screaming checkmate. Your heart's a war drum, and the rats are your only friends. Just when you thought it was over, a monk arrives as your savior. His oath saves you from the noose, swearing the noble's son was doomed. You're free, but the noble's glare says you're skating on thin ice. By some miracle or curse, you survive the first wave. You become legendary in the region. The Raven Doctor, they whisper, who walks among the dying and lives. Towns beg for your services, paying gold for your presence, even when your treatments fail spectacularly. You've perfected the art of medieval medicine, bloodletting until patients faint, burning flesh with red-hot irons to draw out corruption, shoving herb mush up backsides with clysters, forcing violent purges that leave victims too weak to stand. Your reputation grows like a plague itself. You're 25. A lord summons you to his manor. Its halls aglow with wax and wealth, air heavy with incense and dread. His wife's fever burns, skin yellow as curdled piss. You sniff her urine, dark amber with a bitter smell, and the sacred texts whisper of corrupted humors burning within. The yellow bile must be cooled, you decide, prescribing a ginger tonic worth a village. She wakes smiling, purely by luck, and the Lord crowns you his surgeon, tossing silver like confetti. You're suddenly living in a stone house, sipping wine, not ditch water, eating fresh bread instead of moldy scraps. Success tastes sweet, but it's poisoned honey. At 31, a new plague wave creeps in, buboes blooming like poison flowers. You're elbow deep in pus and purging humors till patients collapse. A miller's head wound needs trepanning. You crank iron through bone as he writhes. He lives. Again, pure luck. And this lord calls you a miracle. You start believing it. Every lucky survival becomes proof of your skill. Every death gets blamed on God's will or arriving too late. Against all tradition, you dare to write your own medical texts. A shocking act of hubris that puts you above the ancient masters. Most healers copy Galen's wisdom, but you document your own procedures like some new Aristotle. But they're a house of cards, built on lies that'll fool doctors for centuries. The second pandemic ends in 1362, and your golden days crumble. The church smells blood. Your miracles and strange mask reek of something unholy. Thomas whispers poison in the bishop's ear. His success mocks God's will. How else does he cure what kills bishops' own physicians? He holds devil's herbs. His texts challenge sacred doctrine. You're dragged to an ecclesiastical court, torchlight casting shadows like accusing fingers. Your precious texts, inked with pride, sit on the evidence table, their words twisted into heresy. The bishop's eyes burn with righteous fury as he reads your detailed descriptions of skull drilling and bloodletting. These are not healing arts, he thunders, but satanic rituals disguised as medicine. Your mask and leather coat sits on the evidence table like an accusation. The aromatic herbs that once protected you now condemn you as instruments of dark magic. You spend 9 months in a stone cell. It gnaws your soul, chains biting wrists, rats feasting on moldy crusts. The trial drags on with testimonies from patients' families, some calling you a savior, others swearing you cursed their loved ones with your unholy touch. An old apprentice of yours, now a healer, slips you a note. Deny it or burn. You swear you're no witch, but the bishop's eyes burn hotter than his torches. Thomas produces a patient's widow, swearing you cursed her husband to death. The crowd bays for fire, and the Lord's silence cuts deeper than any blade. You're one lie away from a pyre, your legacy teetering like a house in a storm. A papal legati arrives to settle your case, and by some miracle, declares your practices misguided, but not heretical. You're released with a warning. Practice traditional medicine only. No more experimental procedures. No more dramatic recoveries that suggest supernatural intervention. You're freed, but the damage is done. The stench of suspicion clings like plague rot. Your wealthy patrons are terrified to associate with a suspected witch. You're back to treating peasants in hovels with your medical bag lighter and your confidence shattered like stained glass. The plague returns for a third time, but this wave feels different, faster, crueler. The priests call it the breath of death itself. Pneumonic, some whisper in terror, spread through the very air we breathe. A 3-day death sentence that stalks like a hunting wolf. Your land's buboes mechanically, bloodletting without hope, watching bodies pile like kindling. Your joints scream from years of crouching, lungs choke on herb smoke, hands shake like a drunk's. You feel more like a walking corpse with a fancy hat. By 39, you're a ghost, trudging through 1369 England's slums. The plague's third wave seems done. Streets quiet. No more screams. Today's your last day with patients. Or so you think. You lance one final bubo and send a peasant home with a prayer and a pomander. You're spent. Joints creaking. Lungs stinging from years of herb smoke. But you're safe. You return home at night and peel off your greased coat. The leather heavy as sin. And unstrap your mask. Its lavender stench of faint ghost. Collapsing onto a straw mat, you finally breathe a sigh of relief. But then, you feel a sharp ache in your armpit. Just fatigue, you tell yourself. Then you see it. A bubo. Small, but black as coal. Pulsing under your skin like a traitor's heart. Your breath catches. Heart hammering like a war drum. You prod it, praying it's a bruise. But another swells on your leg. Then another. Spreading like wildfire. The plague's not done. It's been waiting for you. Fever grips you by dawn. Your body shaking like a leaf in a storm. You cough blood for the next 48 hours. By day 2, your vision fades and the hovel's walls close like a tomb. In this life, you tried to heal people. In another, you got paid to hurt them. Click here to step into the life of a medieval torturer, if you dare.